Hey everyone, today we're going to examine some lies that we can easily find in the New Testament. Shalom everybody, and welcome to Beit Tefillah. Today I'd like to read 5 verses from Tanakh before I get started, and hopefully people will keep these verses in mind while they're watching this video while we examine several passages in the New Testament. Starting with Amos 3:7, "For the Master Yahuwah does no matter unless he reveals his secret to his servants the prophets." Deuteronomy 12:32, "All the words I am commanding you, guard to do it, do not add to it nor take away from it." Exodus 12:49, "There is one Torah for the native born and for the stranger who sojourns among you." Malachi 3:6, "For I am Yahuwah, I shall not change." And Psalm 119:142, "Your Torah is truth." So by logic, anything that goes against the Torah is a lie. And unless Elohim has told us himself in his Torah or revealed it to us through his prophets, it would be adding to the word, or in some cases subtracting from it, as the New Testament does both. We know that Elohim gave his people one Torah, just one, and that he does not change. Not over time, not for different people, and not for geographical locations. So please, keep those verses in mind as we proceed. I'm sure most of us have a Bible with 2 parts in it. One's labeled the Old Testament and one's labeled the New Testament. Well, that's very misleading. The Old Testament should be called the only Testament. Christians and Messianics will say, oh no, the New Testament is fitting as Yeshua gave us this new thing. But did Elohim give us some new thing? Did Elohim tell us, hey guys, go for the new stuff? Jeremiah 6:16, "Thus says Yahuwah, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old or ancient paths, where the good way is, and walk in it." Deuteronomy 32:7, "Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father and let him show you, your elders, and they will tell you." No mention of, hey, wait and do the new stuff. We need to remember this was spoken of as old or ancient, even in the prophet Jeremiah's time. Do we think that our generation is so special that we would not be tested as the others were from the beginning? The New Testament, it should be shortened to the New Test. Deuteronomy 8:2, "And you shall remember that Yahuwah your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, to test you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not." That's what this whole video is about. Are we going to guard his commands? Are we going to guard his Torah? Or are we not? I did this video not long ago entitled, "Why did Yahuwah allow the New Testament?" I'm going to link that video below, and that's a good one to watch so you can understand my point a little bit better here of how we're being tested and why Elohim allowed the New Testament. But today let's examine or test some things in the so-called New Testament. I'm going to start with some verses in the book of Matthew, and to start, we're only going to cover just a few of the lies that we can easily find in just this book alone. Matthew 7:22-23, "Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you who work lawlessness." So I need to ask, where do we find in Tanakh, anywhere, even one place where we were ever instructed to prophesy, cast out demons, or do mighty works all in the name of this New Testament Messiah? Any chapters and verses? No, they're not in there. Nowhere. Then we're given a threat with people thinking they might hear this "I never knew you" stuff. Well, as for that threat, I would reply back to this New Testament Messiah that Elohim didn't tell us about you. He didn't speak through his prophets about you. He never even slightly hinted about you. So the bottom line is, not only does nobody need you, but they are so much better off without knowing you, as following you is idolatry. In a similar passage we find in Matthew 10:7-8, And as you go, proclaim, saying, the reign of the heavens has drawn near. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Does anyone ever recall reading any verses in Torah or Tanakh about how we are to raise the dead or cast out demons? Is there an instruction manual for that somewhere? I don't recall it. Got a chapter and verse for anything like that? You won't find anything about that either. As we've discussed in previous videos, there is no fallen angel called the devil, and he doesn't have all these demons working for him as his minions. As a matter of fact, there's no Hebrew word for demon. Okay, this is simply recycled pagan belief. That's all that is. Matthew 10:32-33. Everyone, therefore, who shall confess me before men, him I shall confess before my Father who is in the heavens. But whoever shall deny me before men, him I also shall deny before my Father who is in the heavens. Okay, here's another threat. We're made to think if we don't confess this Messiah to other people, that he won't confess us to the Father. But since Elohim never told us about him or ever mentioned this anywhere in Tanakh, this is of absolutely no concern. Matthew 10:42. And whoever gives one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a taught one, truly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward. Whoever gives a cup of water to a child in the name of a taught one shall not lose his reward? So if an atheistic psychopath gives a little cup of water to a child in the name of a taught one, he's got a surefire ticket to heaven? Is that what this Messiah is saying? Sorry. It's not happening. That's just nonsense. Matthew 11:27. All have been handed over to me by my Father. Well, there's another big lie. Elohim never does nothing without revealing it to his prophets first, as we read in the beginning of this video. And there's not a prophet in Tanakh that ever mentioned something like that, which would be an absolute huge deal if all had been handed over by Yahuwah to this Messiah. Never say anything like that. Matthew 16:25. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. Something else that would have been a very big deal, yet nowhere in Tanakh did Elohim ever say, whoever loses his life for this future coming New Testament Messiah shall keep it. No. Matthew 18:19. Again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning any matter that they ask, it shall be done for them by my Father in the heavens. Wow, this Yeshua guy is making promises and telling lies greater than any modern politician. If any two of us agree on any matter and ask, Elohim will positively do it. See these grand promises he's making to get your vote? Wow. Matthew 20:28. The son of Adam did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Sorry, Yeshua, but according to Elohim, you could not give your life as a ransom for even one person. Matthew 21:21. And Yeshua answering said to them, truly I say to you, if you have belief and do not doubt, you shall not only do what was done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, be removed and be thrown into the sea, it shall be done. Okay, let's stop right there. Let me say something. I remember this fig tree story. However, there's a neat little side note to it here recorded in Mark 11:13. And seeing at a distance a fig tree having leaves, he went to see whether he would find any fruit on it. And when he came to it, he found none but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. So let me ask you something. What would you think of somebody who went and chopped down their apple tree because they were upset they couldn't find any apples on it and it was the middle of winter? You're not going to find any apples on an apple tree ever in the middle of winter, because winter is not the season for apples. So this Messiah supposedly kills this fig tree, even though the fig tree was behaving exactly as Elohim created it. Let's also hear this, Matthew 16:2-3. And he answering said to them, when it is evening you say fair weather, for the heaven is red, and in the morning stormy weather today, for the heaven is red and overcast. You know how to discern the face of the heaven, but you are unable to discern the sign of the times. We would think that somebody who supposedly grew up in the Holy Land where there's plenty of fig trees would know when the season was for figs. So apparently this guy can't read the sign of the times either. Let's look at the last part of verse 21 that we read a minute ago in Matthew 21:21. even if you say to this mountain, be removed and thrown into the sea, it shall be done. Elohim established the foundations of the earth. He put the mountains around the world where he wanted them for a purpose. But the New Testament tells us that if we mortals merely believe and say to these mountains, be removed and thrown into the sea, that it will be so. Has that ever happened? No. Also, we have this in Matthew 17:20. If you have belief as a mustard seed, and you shall say to this mountain, move from here to there, it shall move, and no matter shall be impossible for you. Oh, I see. It only takes belief for men to undo what Elohim has set in place. So what about if an atheist or a Buddhist simply believes that they can move this mountain over there? Yeah, that's just what we need. A whole bunch of people saying, well, I want the mountain over here. No, I want the mountain over here. I want the mountain in the middle of Chicago. Grunch. Come on, people. No mortal man has that power or authority. That is reserved only for Elohim. And for this video, we can't leave this next verse out. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. This is one of the biggest lies in all of the Christian New Testament. The opposite of this fairy tale is that if you don't believe in this fictional New Testament Messiah, that you will perish and that you will not have everlasting life. Well, we know that Elohim does not change, and there has always been one set of laws for his people across the board since the beginning of time. And the world has been around for a very long time, and Adam, Seth, Enoch, Noah, Shem, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and all the prophets of the Tanakh never heard of or believed upon this New Testament Messiah. Instead, we have a plan of forgiveness that is mentioned quite a few times in Tanakh, but let's read this one case in Ezekiel 18:20-23. The being who sins shall die. The son shall not bear the crookedness of the father, nor the father bear the crookedness of the son. The righteousness of the righteous is upon himself, and the wrongness of the wrong is upon himself. But the wrong, if he turns from all his sins which he has done, and he shall guard all my laws, and shall do right ruling and righteousness, he shall certainly live, he shall not die. And the transgressions which he has done shall not be remembered against him. In his righteousness that he has done, he shall live. Have I any pleasure in the death of the wrong, declares Master Yahuwah? Is it not that he should turn from his ways and live? No Messiah mentioned anywhere in there or needed for forgiveness of sin. This New Testament is completely worthless since it's all about this fictional Messiah that Elohim never delivered to us and that we need no part of for forgiveness of sin. So why do we need this guy? We don't. Let's switch gears up here a little bit. I want to examine a couple twistings of the word, which is just a clever way of lying. Let's read something from the book of Hebrews to start this. Hebrews 10:5-8. Therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. In burnt offerings and offerings for sin you did not delight. Then I said, see, I come in the roll of the book it has been written concerning me, to do your desire, O Elohim. Saying above, slaughter and meal offering and burnt offerings and offerings for sin you did not desire, nor delighted in. I'm sure that sounds familiar, because most of that was plagiarized from Psalm 40:6-8, which reads, slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, you have opened my ears. Burnt offering and sin offering you did not ask for. Then I said, see, I have come in the scroll of the book, it is prescribed for me. I have delighted to do your pleasure, O my Elohim, and your Torah is within my heart. Now something is missing from Psalms that was in the passage from Hebrews. Did you catch it? It's in Hebrews 10:5. But a body you have prepared for me. Gee, what a clever addition. See the messianic agenda here? They quote a good portion of Psalms so it sounds legit, and they tweak it or twist it just a little bit that makes the reader think of the Messiah's body that was prepared for him. Oh. Now let's look at something from the book of Acts. Acts 4:10-11. Let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Israel that in the name of Yeshua Messiah of Nazareth, whom you impaled, whom Elohim raised from the dead, by him this one stands before you healthy. This is the stone which was rejected by you builders, which has become the chief cornerstone. Now they misappropriated that last verse from Psalm 118:22. The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Notice in Psalms, this was past tense, and way before there was any New Testament written, and way before the supposed birth of a New Testament Messiah. Let's read it again. The stone which the builders rejected, past tense, has become the chief cornerstone. It's already happened. Okay, that's Elohim. It's not any New Testament Messiah. You know, I could do a 25-part series just on the lies that this phony Apostle Paul spewed out, but I'm not going to. But this video would not be complete without some of his material, since his phony letters make up a large portion of this non-testament. First, let's start with one of Paul's twistings from Romans 10:6-8. But the righteousness of belief speaks in this way. Do not say in your heart, who shall ascend into the heavens, that is, to bring Messiah down, or who shall descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Messiah up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of belief, which we are proclaiming. Now, Paul ripped off and seriously corrupted what is written in the book of Deuteronomy, so let's hear that passage from Deuteronomy 30:11-14. For this command which I am commanding you today, it is not too hard for you, nor is it far off. It is not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend into the heavens for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it, so that we do it. Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it, so that we do it. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, to do it. Now, if you noticed, Paul conveniently omitted all 3 times where Elohim said to do it, about doing the word, obeying the word of Elohim. Instead, Paul inserted some kind of nonsense about bringing the Messiah down or bringing him up from the dead, and leads readers to think it's all about belief in a Messiah instead of action or obedience. So what does this Messiah stuff have anything to do with obeying Torah? Absolutely nothing. More stolen scripture and adding and subtracting from the very word of Elohim. And as for one of the most grievous lies of the non-testament, we hear in the very next verse from that section of Romans 10:9, that if you confess with your mouth the Master Yeshua and believe in all your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. Wow, something like that would be so huge that Elohim certainly would have told us. But he didn't, not in the slightest, no hints, nothing. How wicked of them to tamper with the word of Elohim like that. Elohim said it's the sin to take away or add to his word. So if you believe and live by that garbage, which is accredited to this phony Apostle Paul, you're condoning the sin of changing Elohim's word. I hope some people are beginning to see just how bad they had to butcher the Tanakh to try to concoct this New Testament Messiah. What a mess. Now let's examine a few verses from Paul that are absolute lies, which go directly against Torah. Romans 3:26, he that is righteous and declares righteous, the one who has belief in Yeshua. So Paul is of the mind that one who has the belief in Yeshua is what makes one righteous? Let's hear the Torah's definition of righteousness. Deuteronomy 6:24-25. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahuwah our Elohim for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. It is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahuwah our Elohim as he has commanded us. I didn't hear any Yeshua or Messianic mentions there, did you? And 2 verses later, in Romans 3:28, for we reckon that a man is declared right by belief without works of Torah. You know, I don't even need to go any further with that garbage. It makes you wonder how those who claim to love Torah can quote in their teachings anything this phony Apostle Paul burps out. It's sick and it's completely against the word of Elohim. We have something similar in the book of Galatians. Galatians 2:16. Knowing that a man is not declared right by works of Torah, but through belief in Yeshua Messiah, even we have believed in Messiah Yeshua in order to be declared right by belief in Messiah and not by works of Torah, but because by works of Torah no flesh shall be declared right. And we can match that lie to this verse as well. Galatians 3:11. And that no one is declared right by Torah before Elohim is clear, for the righteous shall live by belief. If you claim to be a Torah lover or a Torah keeper, those verses should be very disturbing to you, in contrast to what we just read in Deuteronomy. Galatians 3:21. Is the Torah then against the promises of Elohim? Let it not be. For if a law had been given that was able to make alive, truly righteousness would have been by Torah. Paul doesn't think the Torah makes us alive. What did we just read in Deuteronomy 6:24? And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahuwah our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive. And the last part of what Paul wrote was this: truly righteousness would have been by Torah. Paul might have learned something if he had read the next verse in Deuteronomy 6:25. It is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahuwah our Elohim as he has commanded us. So apparently righteousness truly is by Torah. And later in Galatians chapter 3 we read the following. Tell me what this sounds like to you. Galatians 3:24-25. Therefore the Torah became our trainer unto Messiah in order to be declared right by belief. And after belief has come, we are no longer under a trainer. What does that sound like? Is Paul saying we had the Torah as a trainer until the Messiah showed up? And now because they claim he did show up, we're no longer under a trainer, which was Torah? So Paul is saying, get rid of Torah since the Messiah came here now? All right. Paul goes against Torah in the following verse. Galatians 5:6. For in Messiah Yeshua, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any strength, but belief working through love. By belief working through love. What kind of fluffy stuff is that? Paul is saying that circumcision isn't necessary. In a moment, we'll prove this out to be a lie. And also a few verses earlier, we can read in Galatians 5:2. See, I will say to you that if you become circumcised, Messiah shall be of no use to you. Shaul, I would say to you that you are ignorant of the word of Elohim. And let's show that by reading a few verses starting with Genesis 17:10. This is my covenant, which you guard between me and you and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised. The following verse is exactly why I would not want to be uncircumcised. Genesis 17:14. And an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. That makes it crystal clear. One thing that Paul did write, however, was correct. For those of us in covenant with Elohim, the New Testament Messiah is of no use to us. Let's see another one. Galatians 5:18. But if you are led by Spirit, you are not under Torah. So nobody is confused as to what Paul means by the Spirit. 4 verses later we hear in Galatians 5:22, and we'll also throw in verse 25. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. So Paul is saying that if we are led by the Spirit, we're not under Torah. Or how are we going to have all these other things without the Torah? Otherwise, it's just all fluff and make-believe. I hope those who love Elohim and his Torah stop quoting this phony Apostle Paul. Romans 3:21-22. But now, apart from the Torah, a righteousness of Elohim has been revealed, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets, and the righteousness of Elohim is through belief in Yeshua Messiah to all and on all who believe. The writers in the New Testament were counting on the Christians and the Messianics to follow this Messiah and to just follow what's new instead of looking at the old or the ancient path. Because if they'd read the Tanakh, they would see that Yeshua Messiah was never witnessed about in the Torah and the prophets. Never. Just as there was never any righteousness for us revealed apart from the Torah. But they don't study it because they stay in the new thing. And they quote Paul, and then they look to Hebrews, and then they read all the Gospels and all this other stuff and try to figure out puzzles and clues in Revelation, what 666 and the 144,000 and what the mark of the beast and all that nonsense is. But you won't find any of that in Tanakh, but they don't read that. They don't study it. That's why they still believe in the virgin birth and that Psalm 22 was a crucifixion psalm and all that. Because they don't read the Tanakh. They don't study the Torah. To see all this New Testament mess is just one big pile of confusion. I want to be perfectly clear on something. Those of us who are trying to wake Messianics up are simply trying to show them the truth of Elohim's word in his Torah and the prophets. And the simple fact that there is no New Testament Messiah promised to us anywhere in the Tanakh by Elohim. Nowhere. He's not in Isaiah 53. He's not in Isaiah 7:14. He's not in Psalms 22, just to name a couple of the easy ones. No, people think he is, but he's not. Those who come against what we're doing are simply defending their pagan Messiah and trying to convince their followers not to listen to us because they stopped learning. They started heading out of churchianity. They ended up dragging out their pagan idol with them. They stopped learning. Many in the Hebrew Roots movement claim to be Torah keepers. Let me be clear on this. If you are following a New Testament Messiah, you are not a Torah keeper at all. Now, you may be keeping some of the Torah, but being in idolatry, what you do keep is all for nothing because you are breaking the first commandment, which is the most grievous sin of all. Let's say that you're married and you listen to most of what your spouse asks of you, and you help care for the children, you help clean up around the house and do chores, you go to work and you help provide for the family. Yet your heart is on somebody else's well and you're whoring around with another person. This means that you really don't have a marriage, but you're just going through motions and appearing as though you do. Because the terms of your covenant state that you're supposed to be loyal to your spouse, forsaking all others. There was no clause in your marriage covenant that you could be with another. Now, if you put a clause like that in your marriage contract, do you think your spouse would have married you? So if you're keeping the Shabbat, wearing your tzitzit, eating according to the Levitical food laws, doing all the feast days, and keeping a lot of the other Torah commands, but you're worshiping and praying in the name of this New Testament Messiah, you are only appearing as though you are a Torah keeper and in covenant. But you are most certainly not in covenant with Elohim because you remain in adultery to Elohim, which is idolatry. Imagine standing before the Creator one day in judgment, and he says to you, okay, let's see how well you fared with obeying my Torah commands. Number 1, have no other mighty ones before or besides me. Well, we can stop right there with you because you were following a New Testament Savior, one I never delivered to you, an idol. You were in idolatry. So we don't need to go any further with you. Next! So please, listen to Elohim when he tells us in Isaiah 43:10, you are my witnesses, declares Yahuwah, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no El formed, nor after me there is none. I am Yahuwah, and besides me there is no Savior. There's no other Savior besides Elohim. That's all there is. A lot of Messianics, they try to overcome this issue by claiming that God came in the flesh is Yeshua. First of all, Elohim is not a man and he cannot be killed. Who wants an Elohim that can be killed as easy as a regular guy? Not me. He says he's not a man. His ways are not our ways. He did not come in the flesh. He would have told us something like that. Once again, he didn't, not even hinted at it. Whether or not someone believes the Messiah was God in the flesh or the Son of God, how does it make sense that by men killing him, they would be reconciled back to Elohim? That doesn't even make any sense, but Messianics don't seem to question this. Elohim gave us a commandment, do not murder. Do Messianics think that by murdering God's Son, they can be reconciled back to God through the breaking of the Torah? If a man is innocent or without sin, as they claim their Messiah to be, and he is put to death, that is murder. Elohim would never instruct his people to break the Torah command of you shall not murder, especially for something as important as the atonement for sin. He would not accept a sin of murder as a sacrifice. No! Human sacrifice is an abomination to Elohim, and humans are not on Elohim's list in the Torah for acceptable sin sacrifices. Nobody can die for another man's sin. All of that is told to us clearly in Tanakh, but the Messianics, they don't even acknowledge that. They don't listen to it. They throw all of the Torah and all the prophets away just to keep their little pagan idol. Please get out of this New Testament and stop believing lies and following this messianic idol that Elohim never delivered to us. Well, I hope this video blessed you. Much shalom to all who are scattered worldwide in the dispersion all around the earth, who are truly Yisrael and out of idolatry. Everybody be blessed and have a wonderful day.